And I'm still joined this morning by our wonderful panel, Lisa Duarte, Alex Sims-Jones, Maureen Newman. Let me start by talking about these protests. Look, we know they're going to happen over the course of the week. My question for you is, and having lived through the 1968 convention, remembering those kind of protests, are we prepared for them? Are we able to handle them? And how should Harris address them when she speaks on Thursday?
I think she should be excited for the fact that in our country, the right to assemble and free speech is a freedom, back to that theme of being important to our country's threat, right? So I think that's wonderful. I think she should also recognize that everybody has a right to talk about what they want to talk about. I think that the city is doing a lot of things right. If I could put a pitch out there that sound equipment should be available to all of the protesters, I think that's fair. Because it is freedom of speech and right to assemble, part of our thread there. So I think that they're doing a fairly good job with the city. And by the way, it's an incredibly hard job. So I wouldn't be in a place to criticize them because it's incredibly hard. But those protesters have a right to say what they need to say.
Lisa, fair enough, freedom of speech. Is there anything Harris or anybody else during the week could even say that would bring them into the fold and say they hear us?
Absolutely. I mean, going back to one of our other questions about how she's going to distinguish herself from the Biden administration. So, you know, we all know that the vice president plays a very different role than the president. They're not the number one. They're not in charge. But, you know, does the regular citizen walking on the street understand that distinction? And so I think she's going to have to come out and, I wouldn't say pivot, but maybe move a little bit one way or the other. She has come out and said that this is a humanitarian crisis. She did skip Benjamin Netanyahu's speech to Congress. So I think she's done.
But then met with him privately.
She did, but I think she's doing some soft messaging there, and she wants to be the president of the United States, and she's already served as the vice president of the United States. She knows exactly what is coming. It is her job to receive these people, to hear them, and to get to the best possible resolution with everybody being a little bit upset. And so, you know, she branded herself as a progressive prosecutor. And I think that, you know, to Marie's point, they're here, they can march, they can speak, they can be seen, they can be heard. And it's just towing the line before that turns into, you know, physical violence or, you know, property damage, looting, anything like that.
So, Alex, as Lisa kind of indicates, I mean, we see a bit of a shift, a break a bit from Harris, from Biden, as she tries to establish her own policy. My question for you is, should the Democrats acknowledge that there is indeed dissent even amongst their own ranks on this issue, and how does she handle it?
I think they have to, because that's part of the Democratic Party. We're different, you know, we have a bunch of different voices amongst us, but we know how to handle those different voices. And I think that, you know, even if we're talking about the DNC, we see both sides. We have friends on both sides, but we can all come together and have a conversation, and that's what makes us us. And she has to listen. She has to continue to do what she's doing and saying, yes, there will be a ceasefire. And not everyone wants to hear it the way she's saying it, but she has to continue to listen and continue to communicate with folks. And she's doing a good job so far.
Lisa, she's also going to be facing abortion as an issue. Although, interestingly, not that long ago, former President Trump said he doesn't think abortion is going to be a front burner issue anymore this year. It seemed he says that because he's like, well, you know, now with Roe versus Wade overturned, the states are doing their own thing. And
yeah, he's trying to take off that very uncomfortable jacket that he put on very quickly and ran around our country in. And
so how do Democrats?
Tell me your question before I launch my
so
opinion.
how do Democrats win support over on that issue if there's some sense from Trump that Republicans are saying it's not that critical?
Okay, so a couple things. One, they need to frame it in the context of this is not just an issue for women. This is an issue for men. This is about family planning. This is about, you know, if your wife is going to make it through the childbirth that she's trying to have. There's millions of women in America that spend a ton of time and money and resources trying to get pregnant, and for medical reasons end up in the position where they're going to have an abortion. This isn't about promiscuous or loose women using abortion as a birth control method.
Who even says loose women?
I know, right? Because that's what people say. That's what they say. But, you know, like, abortion is so much bigger than that. And they also need to frame it in the context of what Donald Trump has done to the Supreme Court and the impact that's going to happen for generations. And then it's not just abortion, it's also LGBTQ plus rights. And it's also, you know, the erosion of the ability to use agencies and experts on your judicial opinions, the Chevron case. I mean, these are huge things that are going to last several generations unless the Democrats are able to reframe and rework the structure of the Supreme
So
Court.
your strategy is sort of this domino effect. In other words, it's not just this, but it impacts a lot of other things that follow as a result. And the Supreme Court, of course, you can't control that. Not
Yeah,
right now.
Lisa's completely right. The Republicans can't win on this issue. This is the Democrats' leading issue. And the fact that now we have a woman as a front runner, the Democrats have to run with this issue. I think every woman in the country, this has impacted them in some type of way. So it's a winning issue state by state.
Marie, let me ask you about the border. You were in Congress. You dealt with this issue. And right now, you know, Donald Trump says things are terrible. The Democrats point to say the numbers are down. And the position of Democrats seemed to be, look, there was a plan, a conservative plan, and Trump killed it. All of that is, you know, may be the way it is. But that being said, what do you say to Republicans who say, yeah, but Biden, Harris were there for 3 years before any of this happened? What were they doing?
They were negotiating this. So Republican senators, Langhorne included, actually are now admitting, look, they came to us and they were working with us for multiple years. And then President Trump put a big kibosh on it. And now we do not have a bill that was going to work pretty much for everybody. Was it perfect? No, but it was well agreed upon in the Senate and in the House of Representatives.
Is this one of the, I mean, this is a tough challenge for her as an issue. Regardless of what you think about it, it's a tough one for Democrats.
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there was a lot of time where people were asking what's going on, where's the plan. Kamala was definitely put forth as the person who was in charge of that issue. And I think that the Republicans wanted to keep it as the political football or stick or bat or whatnot after they slayed abortion, and that's no longer the fear issue in the room. You know, they want it to transition to immigration and border security.
Alex, let me ask you about the economy. You know, indicators are good, and the Democrats point to the economic indicators, but we all agree, I think, people still say eggs are expensive, gas is expensive. How does she address that when, again, she's been in that driver's seat, certainly according to Republicans, on the economy for the last 3 years, but all of a sudden things are going to get better?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to acknowledge the reality of people's everyday lives and still speak to the job numbers, and then talk about the facts, talk about what it was like under Trump, talk about what it was like under every Republican.
I'll tag off of what Alex shared, and you know what she does? Actually, she's already doing this. She slices right into it as a prosecutor and said, I'm going to go after those price gouging grocery stores. And that's what people want to hear, is that you're actually going to address it head on and bring prices down that way.
My last question, I want each of you just give me a brief answer. We've got 5 days coming up. Chicago is going to be the spotlight of the country, certainly. I think that's clear. What do you want DNC members, but also viewers, visitors, to take away at the end of this week? Let's just walk down the row here.
I think the message of joy is really infectious in our country right now. And I think I want everyone to see that convention. And it's not just that we have joy because we're all happy people. We have a path. It's defined. We know how we're going to get better. We know how we're going to keep our freedom. So that message of joy, if they can take that away, and enthusiasm. Jim Messina was on one of the shows that, recently and said the enthusiasm metric is the most important one, and it's showing up in the polls.
Lisa.
I would love for them to see the beauty and all the things that our wonderful city has to offer. I would love for there to be tons of protests where everybody voices their opinions, but there is no violence. And perhaps the Democratic Party able to step forth and say, we're going to be able to lead to our base, but we're going to be able to actually play broader and bring more people with us. And hopefully we'll just be turning the page to a less partisan and less divisive era. I think I read a quote that was like, this is the first time in like 48 years where there's not a Clinton, a Biden, or a Bush involved in an election. I mean,
Right.
that's a really big deal. And I think that's something that when we were talking about Monday night's lineup, it's really is that turning of a page. And so maybe more inclusive.
Alex.
Yeah, I think that showcasing Chicago's strong, diverse economy is really important. You know, we have a DNC and a DNC host committee that worked really hard to showcase Chicago's vendors, small businesses, everything that exists in the city. So I'm really excited for that to be highlighted and for people to walk away seeing it.
Thank you all for spending part of your Sunday with me. I really appreciate that, and have fun in the week ahead.